Number 8. James Dean's Porsche 550 Spyder. James Dean is arguably one of the most famous people to ever live, and his untimely death shocked the world. But what was more shocking to many was that the car that took the actor's life appeared to be cursed. And this isn't said lightly. Since Dean's accident, the car has proven to be a deadly omen over and over again. Dean was a big fan of cars. He already had a very nice Porsche 356 while filming the legendary movie Rebel Without a Cause, but he decided to upgrade his ride to the cool convertible Porsche 550 Spyder. He decided to customize it from top to bottom and hired George Barris to be in charge of the customization. After getting the car, Dean would have lunch with Alec Guinness, who you might know as the original Obi-Wan Kenobi. When Dean had Guinness take a look at the car, Guinness was unsettled. He told Dean that the new car had a sinister way about it and promised Dean that if he continued to drive that car, it would kill him in a week. How ominous. And coincidentally, exactly 7 days later, Dean was killed in a horrific car accident in the sinister Porsche 550 Spyder. To be clear, that's not the end of the story. Far from it. That's just strike one. You see, after the wreck, George Barris bought back the car in hopes of restoring it, or at least selling off the parts. A week after doing so, the car fell off the trailer it was on and broke a man's leg. 2 strikes. Barris then started to sell parts of the car to other people, including Troy McHenry and William Eschrid. During a race, using the cars that had the recycled parts from the cursed Porsche, McHenry hit a tree and died, while Eschrid lost control of his car and rolled off the road, causing him severe injuries. Strike 3, you're out. But no, the story is still not done. Barris tried to get rid of the car, but Highway Patrol thought of this as a good way to show off the dangers of car accidents and convinced him to donate the wreckage to some exhibits. The first exhibit failed, and the garage that housed the car mysteriously burnt down. Somehow, the infamous car was totally untouched in the blaze. It was then given to a high school where it fell off a display and hurt a student. It's almost unbelievable, and there's even more. The next 3 people, all truck drivers who came into contact with the car, all suffered accidents of some sort, including one falling out of the truck and then getting run over by the Porsche itself somehow. The car disappeared shortly after that and hasn't been seen since, leaving many to wonder if the curse was finally killed with its vanishing. If only one of these events happened, you could argue that it was just a stroke of bad luck, but considering how many people this car hurt over its reign of terror, you can see why so many people feel the car is cursed. And yet, people are looking for this car to this day because they want a piece of history. If someone offered you an awesome, mint-condition retro Porsche, but you knew it was cursed, would you drive it? Let me know in the comments. Number 7. Crying Boy Picture. Giovanni Bragolin painted a number of pictures in the 1900s, but unlike many artists, the subjects of his paintings were very different from his contemporaries. Many of his paintings depicted crying little boys. Despite the creepy nature of the paintings, they all sold very well, and tens of thousands could be found in England, which was the start of a curse that still somewhat exists to this day. It all began one night when a family found their house on fire, and though they got out in time, the entire house was torched, except for the painting. Later on, a series of fires broke out, and they all happened to have the paintings involved in them. Eerily enough, in every instance, the paintings survived the string of fires in fine condition. Eventually, a British tabloid called The Sun caught on to the disastrous coincidences and published a piece on the incidents called Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy Picture. This started a bit of a frenzy across the UK, and when more fires continued occurring involving the supposedly haunting paintings, the legend grew. There were even tales of unfortunate events happening to those who tried to get rid of the paintings. Along the way came a man named Stephen Punt, who was determined to figure out what was going on. Were the Crying Boy paintings truly cursed, or was it all a big and unfortunate coincidence? He was especially interested in finding out why, during all these fires, the paintings wouldn't burn. His explanation for the deadly phenomenon was that the varnish of the painting acted as a fire retardant, allowing them to survive the many disastrous blazes. Still, the curse lives in the minds of many to this day, and the painting hasn't been sold in decades due to the ominous legend which exists around it. But to be honest, even if the art wasn't cursed, I for one wouldn't want a painting of a creepy crying boy hanging in my house. How about you? Would you dare to hang one of these priceless crying boy paintings in your house? Leave a comment. Number 6. Rox from Gettysburg. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania is home to not only one of the most important battles in American history, but it's also home to many supposedly haunted and cursed objects and locations. Where the legendary battle was held in Gettysburg is now a national park, and because of that, many people go there all the time to see the history live, if you will. When they do visit the site, some tourists decide to go and take some rocks from the battlefield as souvenirs. But before you start planning your trip to Gettysburg to retrieve these historical rocks, listen to this, because there is a catch. When people do take these rocks from Gettysburg, things apparently go very wrong for them. Many cases have been reported and documented of people taking the rocks as harmless souvenirs, only for them to suffer seriously unfortunate consequences in their lives. One man even lost his entire family and house, and then later on ended up in jail. Another family lost their dog in an accident with a train. Injuries, broken bones, surgeries, bad relationships, etc. are all very common anecdotes, so it seems that the rocks are associated with a pretty serious case of bad luck. Nowadays, if you are caught taking a rock from the battlefield, you'll be charged a $100 fine, which alone is enough of a reason to leave the haunted rocks alone, where they belong. Number 5. Bessano Vaze. This is a tale of a wedding gift. A gorgeous, luxury vase, which was given to a bride in northern Italy. The vase itself was made in the 15th century and was carved from pure silver. That day, the families enjoyed a wonderful celebration, along with many joyous wedding festivities, but that evening, the merry atmosphere took a turn. On the exact night of the wedding, the bride was murdered in cold blood. The only clue was from just before her death, when the new bride was found on the ground, clutching the silver vase to her chest and promising to kill the person who took her life. After the tragic incident, the vase went on to be passed down through the bride's family, but every single one of them also met their untimely deaths, all under unusual circumstances. Eventually, the vase was buried as a precaution so that it wouldn't take anyone else's life, and it remained that way until 1988, when it was accidentally rediscovered and dug back up. Apparently, a piece of parchment was found inside of the vase, and it read, "Beware. This vase brings death." The person who found the haunted artifact then sold it to a pharmacist, who then died 3 months later. That man's family knew it was clearly bad news, so they sold it to a surgeon, who also, you guessed it, died. An archaeologist was the next victim, and 3 months after he purchased the vase, a weird, uncommon infection took his life. Are you seeing a pattern here? The vase bounced around a little more before ending up in the hands of the police, who sought to give it to museums, but each one knew of the curse and thus refused to take it. As for where it is now, no one knows, and it might be better that way. Number 4. Curse of the Pharaoh. The Curse of the Pharaoh is one of the most well-known curses in the world, and was one beset upon anybody who dared to open the tomb of King Tutankhamun, who's more commonly known as King Tut. In the decade after the opening of King Tut's tomb, which happened a year after it was found, which was 1922, 6 of the 23 daring explorers who were present at the discovery died. And some in very weird ways. Some died from rare types of blood poisoning, and others had their lives taken by a disease which they got from deadly mosquito bites. The legendary and dangerous Curse of the Pharaoh was born from these incidents, and many wondered if other tombs had such curses put upon them as well. Here's the twist, though. There is no mention anywhere in Egyptian lore of such a curse. Warnings, yes, there are many warnings about entering ancient tombs, but no explicit curses. Furthermore, many scientists believe that it was ancient biological pathogens that probably got some of these explorers killed, since that has certainly happened with other tomb recoveries in the past. Eventually, as it turns out, it was revealed that the whole idea of the curse was actually put forth by one of the heads of the expedition team. They totally made it up in order to ward off potential tomb raiders who would interrupt their scientific expedition. And it worked, because no robber wants to deal with a deadly curse. However, even with the team confessing, there are some who believe in the curse of the Pharaoh to this day. What do you think? Do you believe in the curse of the Pharaoh? Number 3. Busbys Chair. In the late 17th century, in northern Yorkshire, England, there was a man named Daniel Awidi. Awidi had recently moved there to the rural area so that he could conduct his illegal counterfeiting business in private. He had a good business going in the quiet town until he eventually met a local man named Thomas Busby. The two got along at first and even went into business together. And eventually, Busby married Awidi's daughter. This led to problems in their business, and one day an argument broke out between the two men. Actually, 2 arguments broke out between them, 2 very different ones. Awidi was mad that Busby was mistreating his daughter, Busby's wife, while Busby, on the other hand, was mad at Awidi because Awidi sat in Busby's favorite chair. For context, Busby was a bit of a drunk and could be angry and unreasonable when drinking, which happened often. Busby then killed the other man for sitting in his favorite chair. Now that escalated quickly, but Busby didn't get away with his crime. He was arrested and sentenced to hanging for murder. Before he died, though, he angrily swore that anyone who dared to sit in the chair would be met with a violent death. The chair became famous, being shown off at the aptly named Busby Stoop Inn, and the owner of the inn ended up making a lot of money off of tourists. However, that's where the curse really started. Many people who sat in that cursed chair died in unusual and sudden deaths. Apparently, Busby's cursed chair has killed 63 people. While the chair can still be seen on display today, it's been lifted 5 feet into the air and hung on a wall. This way, no one can sit in it anymore, and hopefully the curse will never befall anyone else again. Number 2. The Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond is another in a long line of famous cursed objects. If you didn't know already, this is a rare blue diamond measured to be 45 carats, and its worth is approximately $250 million. Yet, if someone is asked to touch it, they promptly refuse. Why? Because as the story goes, if you touch the gem, you'll be cursed with misfortune or even death. The origin of this story comes from a temple in India. A Hindu priest stole the gem and was coldly rewarded with an agonizing death. Eventually, the gem was found and made its way to Europe in 1668. There, it was bought by a French merchant who would eventually sell it to King Louis XIV. That merchant was later mauled to death by dogs. Both King Louis and his wife Marie Antoinette were later beheaded, and the gem was stolen during that period. It later passed on from person to person, including a potential encounter with a British king whose family had to sell the diamond to pay off his debts. Eventually, it wound up in the hands of a man named Henry Thomas Hope, which is where the diamond got its name. Several owners after him followed, and a similar tale of death and woe continued. The truth behind the Hope Diamond is one that is heavily debated, mainly because some believe that it was just a story hyped up by papers, or was people blaming their woes on an object. Whatever you believe, the Hope Diamond is not cursing anyone anymore, as it was later donated to the Smithsonian Museum, where it remains to this day in a glass case, safe from any hands that would dare tempt fate and the diamond's curse. Number 1. King Casimirs' tomb. In 1973, the tomb of the late King Casimir of Poland was found, and not long after that, people started to die. 4 of the 12 people who uncovered the tomb were dead within a matter of days. The rest died unexpectedly in the years to come. Things continued to escalate until no fewer than 15 people were killed, all of whom worked on or studied the tomb of the Polish king. Clearly, a curse had been unlocked and set free when the tomb was opened. That being said, the truth was much more revealing. After he had been embalmed many years ago, the people who were in charge of sealing the king's tomb did so very poorly. Since the seal on his coffin wasn't complete, moisture was able to seep in from rain and cause the corpse to decompose in a very dangerous way, which was the perfect breeding ground for a deadly fungus called Aspergillus flavus. So, when a team of explorers opened the coffin many years later, the fungus spread to them through the air and they all started to die from the illness. So it turns out there was no true curse, just a case of some careless morticians and unprepared team of explorers who were not protected from the deadly fungus. Thank you all for watching. What did you think of these objects from history that appeared to be haunted or cursed, killing many who came into contact with them? Are you shocked by how many items like these are scattered throughout history? Do you know of another haunted artifact that has a dark past? Let me know in the comments below and be sure to subscribe. See you next time!